Welcome to the Weather Insights podcast briefing. I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney, along with meteorologist Jeff Lindner. We are recording this on Tuesday, September 17th, and we're looking at it's called Disturbance number 1, which used to be Gordon, which now has a 40% chance of developing over the next 7 days, still just kind of drifting aimlessly, I guess, in a somewhat of a north direction there. But it's really basically been stationary, 3 miles an hour, if there was any movement at all over the last few days, and will continue to do so. Intertropical convergence zone looking pretty quiet here on the IR satellite. We see that trough just off of the eastern seaboard there, and that trough extending down to the southern Gulf of Mexico. But next week, Jeff, we're going to be looking at the Western Caribbean for some possible development there.
Yeah, and I don't want to discount what happened yesterday in North Carolina. Yep. We had this I guess it was Potential Tropical Cyclone 8 wander in and produced an unprecedented amount of rain around Curry Beach and Carolina Beach, 18 inches in a 12-hour period, just devastating flooding here in coastal North Carolina, where this kind of moved inland. And so, was it close? It was close to being declared. They did have some good winds, 60, 70 mile an hour winds with it. And so kind of interesting that the National Hurricane Center didn't go with the name. I guess it's even subtropical. It kind of looked like subtropical at least. And so that's this here spinning now inland over the kind of the North, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee area. And interestingly enough, all that heavy rain has spread further to the north now. Yeah. This is Gordon down here. You think Gordon may be up here, but this is it down here, and it's going to kind of pull north and interact with this thing up here. And we may see Gordon reborn again. And there's some guidance that strengthens this up. It finds more favorable. You can see the shear just ripping.
Yeah,
that's westerly shear just tearing through the central Atlantic here. But as you mentioned, our attention is going to turn down here to the Central America, Yucatan, Western Caribbean, Southern Gulf of Mexico, which becomes our favorite area as we get towards late September and especially into October. And sure enough, right on cue, looking at the ensembles again, you're talking 5-10 days out. Ensembles are the way to go. Scary deterministic model runs out there right now. I wouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to them. Yeah. Pretty much each one shows a different solution for something bad coming into the Gulf of Mexico in a week or so. But I'd probably stay away from those deterministic runs and go with these ensemble runs now. So this is for next Wednesday around noon. And you can see there's a lot of members here that are showing some sort of development of something between Cuba, the Yucatan, Honduras, Central America, and then up into the southeast Gulf of Mexico. So somewhere you can see there's a lot of spread here. Bahamas, all the way over to the southern Gulf of Mexico, all the way up to the Florida Panhandle, all the way down to east of Belize. So there's tons of spread on timing and track and all that good stuff. And this is the European ensembles. And then we'll take a look at the GFS ensembles. And it has a little bit stronger of a more consolidated signal of members here just off of the southern coast of Cuba, east of the Yucatan, and then some spread up towards Florida. So there's hints. There's enough of a signal. This is what we call kind of a signal in the mid-range here, 7 to 10 days out, from both of our European and our American modeling here on the ensembles, that there's probably going to try to be something that develops down here. Now, what's interesting about this is very similar to what we had down here in June. So in June, early in the season, and then also again kind of late in the season, you get what we call these Central American gyres. And what this is just kind of an elongated trough of low pressure that develops here across southern Mexico and Central America. And there's rotation with it, but it's very broad. We're talking several hundreds of miles. And around that broad rotation that usually centers somewhere over the land, you can get these pieces of energy that kind of rotate around. And it's these pieces of energy that can eventually form that surface low pressure somewhere. And so it's very uncertain, where something could form up. It could be really close to the Yucatan. It could even be over here in the Bay of Campeche. It could be over here on the Eastern Pacific side, or you could even get another system. You can kind of see here the GFS is showing 2 different potential systems developing, one on the Gulf side, you get the Caribbean side, and one over here on the Eastern Pacific side. Not uncommon with these Central American gyres, and so there's just a lot of uncertainty. This is how we got Alberto in June, that then came west and made landfall in Mexico. But the steering pattern, June, it's not June, it's September now, late September, and the steering pattern is much different this time of year than the early part of the season. And so this is the steering, the upper pattern for next Wednesday again at noon. So potentially something down here in this region of the Western Caribbean. And you can see we do have a trough of low pressure here approaching the central United States, and this is going to be pushing east. So steering here would probably be something on off to the north, depending on how strong it were to get. If it were to stay more weak, the steering may be a little bit more toward the west, toward Central America. European here also showing this trough. The trough is this kind of
Mhm.
dip here in the jet stream from the Great Lakes down towards Texas. Again, this isn't a super strong trough, but if something were to kind of develop down here and strengthen, it would definitely feel this weakness and want to try to pull northward.
Mhm.
I won't rule out anything. Again, we're 7 to 10 days out.
Yeah.
Steering is going to change. Where something's going to develop is probably going to change. But it is getting kind of late here for us in Texas. We're not totally 100% in the clear, but by the time you get to the last week of September, first week of October, it starts to get pretty late in the season here for us. But we'll have to watch this because if it were to come northward, some part of the Gulf Coast or Florida could definitely be impacted as we get to 8 or 9 days from now. And again, we're talking out there in La La Land on the model, so
Right.
something there. We got a signal, something to watch, nothing to be worried about, but just something to keep an eye on. And we keep trying to creep up on that 10 name storms this season. So yeah.
Yeah, well, certainly a lot of uncertainty, but what the models are consistent on is they do both show a low in the Western Caribbean next week. So it'll be something to watch, and you can keep it right here on Weather Insights, and we'll keep you informed on the latest tropics with our tropic briefings. Be sure to subscribe and make sure you turn on those notifications. Jeff, thank you very much.